to make it work. Thank you. I apologize. Thank you for your patience. We will have several people make presentations tonight, and we'll tell you a little bit more about why this team is here tonight as opposed to the team that you had at the last community meeting. We have, as I said, we are trying to also stream this to Facebook Live. We're also taping it so that if for any reason we have glitches with Facebook Live, it will be recorded and we can put it up online on the park website and Facebook later so everybody can see it. So we're trying as much as we possibly can to get this available to as many people as possible. We will take questions at the end after everybody's had a chance to make presentations. From the audience, we have a mic and we'll answer as many questions as possible. We will also attempt to answer any questions that may come into the chat. So if you're online and you have questions or comments, if you would like to drop that into the chat, we will do our best to answer as many questions as possible this evening. With that, I'm going to start with the Park Superintendent, Clay Jordan.
Okay, thanks, Carrie. You know, I like to wander when I talk and all this, so I'm going to try to discipline myself for the cameras and all that and try not to wander too much around. So I think I have met a great number of you now. This is our 5th public meeting, and as Carrie said, if I haven't met you yet, I am the superintendent of Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks. And I came on board last November, right on the heels of the SQF complex. So here we are, you know, less than a year later, and here we are again. And so I want to do something a little bit different than what we've done with the other meetings. So in each of those meetings, right, we get into the operations update, and we work our way around the map and really get into the weeds of tactics and the actions that are going on around the map. And we've been doing that now for 4 public meetings, and we've been doing that for 2.5 weeks. And yet, with all that detail and all that description of work and now 1,800 people on this fire and all kinds of aircraft and dozers and engines and whatnot, we're only showing 8% containment. 8% containment. Now, if you had told me 2.5 weeks ago that at this point we would be less than 10% containment, I probably would have said, oh, I'm not sure I want to hear that. But here we are. So what does that mean? And is there anybody in here concerned about what that means, only less than 10%? Yeah, you know, we get into a lot of detail about the operational things that are happening, but what I want to do for the next 10 or 15 minutes is to step back and kind of talk about the larger strategies, and so that we're all a little bit more informed. And there's a lot of conjecture, and I haven't had time to read the blogs and all that, but I get briefed, and I know that there's a lot of speculation as to what that means. And I think on the surface, it does seem to undermine confidence in the ability of the firefighting organizations to contain this fire, because that's a metric that we're used to seeing and using to measure progress on a fire. So I think it's worth talking about it, and I want to address head on some of the information that is out there. There is a lot of misinformation out there, and I want you to at least be well informed. It doesn't mean that we're all going to agree at the end of the night. It doesn't mean that that anything I say or anything else you hear tonight may make you more comfortable than where you're at right now. But at least I think we'll have that dialogue, and you'll know some perspectives behind the scenes, some of the discussions that we have going on. And so why 8%? And I might need some help in case I'm missing something from the blogs. I know what some of the rationales are, or some of the thinking is as to why we're at 8%. One of them, right, and I've written them down here just to preload. I'm going to see if I'm missing any from you. But number Park Service, fires burn. And we are letting this fire burn resource benefit for the benefit of the ecosystem, concerned about the communities, right? Heard this? Right? Okay. Number two, all we focus on the giant sequoias. We don't really care about anything else. Is that out there? Okay. Number three, we're not being aggressive enough to go after this fire. And that's a pretty broad statement, and there is room for good debate on this one. But so breaking this one down, we're going to break it down a little bit further. I've seen out there that, we don't allow dozers in the park, or certainly not much dozers in the park. That we don't allow retardant and the aircraft to drop retardant because we're concerned about environmental concerns. And the third one is that we're not doing enough direct attack on this fire. Now we're going to talk about direct versus indirect. And that is all under that category of not being aggressive enough. And then the fourth category, right, the fourth possible rationale is that the containment is low because there has been, and it's related to not less direct attack. If you're not doing direct attack, you're doing indirect attack. And when you do indirect attack, you have a lot less containment in the beginning. So those are some of the things I know I'm seeing in the, or hearing about in the blogosphere. Am I missing anything? Do you have any other concerns as to what could be a reason for why we're less than 10%?
There was a piece on 60 Minutes last night, and one of the things that they brought up, not about this specific fire, because I think it was recorded before this one, but it was specific to California and saying that CAL FIRE and the Park Services aren't working well enough together, and so they have, these Chinook helicopters, and they have all this equipment, and it's sitting on the ground not being used.
And that was regarding the fire at night.
Right. Well,
Okay.
day and night, but yeah.
Yeah, so I think we're going to talk a little bit about that. I appreciate that. And that kind of falls under this category of not being aggressive enough, right? Having tools that are available and not applying them, right? So I want to talk about these things in a little bit more detail. The first thing I think what's really important when we talk about 8% containment, what does that really mean? When we call a part of the fire, and we are showing some containment in the Mineral King area and up in the Lodgepole area around those two communities. So what does that mean? Does that mean that there's no other fire lines around or containment? It does not, and some of you are shaking your heads, and you're right about that. Firefighters don't like to call a section of the fire perimeter contained unless there really is no unburned fuels between the head of the fire and the fire line, and that line has kind of been tested, or there is a high degree of confidence that this line will at least hold normal conditions. Not going to hold everything. You can get spotting, and you can get some what we call slop overs, but we don't like to call something contained unless it is looking pretty secure. And so with that understanding, then let's look at these four categories and evaluate them a little bit more for reality. So number one, letting the fire burn for resources. We're stepping back. We're just saying, hey, let's let it just burn and cover some ground. So it is no secret that we are proponents of fire on the landscape. Okay? We need more fire on the landscape in order to prevent the conflagrations, in order to prevent the big ones. So that's prescribed fire, and we've been doing it here in Sequoia Kings Canyon since the 1960s. And it is the use of occasionally letting those natural lightning fires to be able to manage them, to be able to grow in a place. But here's the key. We only would do that when we're within a prescription. In other words, when the assessment of the fire, whether it's a natural fire start or we have started with purposely, is when the conditions allow that fire to spread in an area that the resources can benefit, right? Some areas of the backcountry have fire-dependent species. Some areas we're trying to reduce the fuels, and so we apply it when we can get the benefit to the resource, when we can burn off those extra fuels, but it means it needs to be low-intensity fire. Low-intensity fire. High-intensity fire, number one, is hard to control, right, and poses a real risk that we may not be able to contain it. And number two, high-intensity fire kills the trees and causes really high mortality to the trees, including the giant sequoias, which is what we're really trying to protect. So this year, we have had about, I think, close to 20 fires in Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park. A lot of them are back in the wilderness. None of them have been managed fires. All of them have been suppression fires. Why? Because of the extreme drought. It is not safe to just allow them to just go unchecked. And as far as the resource, we're not helping the resource if we have high-intensity fires because of the drought, because of the heavy accumulation of fuels. So that one I hope we can take off the table. All right, this fire, these started as two fires. We jumped on them with everything that we had since day one. So it has never been about letting them burn. Okay, so if we take that off the table, focus on the sequoias. Well, I think I spoke to this, I think, at the last public meeting. And obviously the sequoias have gotten a lot of national and international media attention. We've seen it. And at the national and the international, if you interpret those, you would get a sense that that's all the media cares about. Now, that's not true of the local media, right? The local media are our neighbors, and they certainly do care about covering the community protection as much as anything else. But you can easily get the impression that it's all about the sequoias from the Park Service perspective, right? Well, I have been clear since day one that to the last management team, to this management team, that yes, the sequoias are important to us. We get it. They've been around a couple of thousand years. People come from around the world to experience these trees. It's important to the local economy. So yes, they do matter a lot to us, and we are going to put special focus into the protection of the sequoias. However, we've always been clear that is second to protection of the communities. And if you count up, out of the 1,800 people that are on this fire, a relatively pretty small percentage of that has anything to do with protecting the sequoias. Most of those efforts are on trying to contain this fire and to keep it from being a threat to the sequoias and to the communities, okay? So it's not all about the sequoias, even though they're important to us. So I hope we can put that one to rest. Number 3, not aggressive enough. Now this one gets a little bit trickier because firefighting, wildland firefighting, is a science. It is not an exact nature, and there's a lot of different experiences of experts. First of all, dozers, all right? We, up to this point now, we now have 19 miles of dozer line within Sequoia National Park, 19 miles, okay? We added some mileage today, and we may not be done. Now that's unprecedented, and I'll probably get attacked by some people at some point, being the dozer king or something like that, but... And towards that effort, we do try to work, and CAL FIRE has been our partners in this, and they have been terrific to work with, to be able to put in these dozer lines when it makes sense, when it looks like it's effective to do so, but also in a way that tries to be as light on the land as possible. And so we have a great partner towards that. So we can put that to rest, I hope, you know, is that we have dozers, lots of dozer lines, not normally something we've done in the past in this park, but we're under extreme conditions here, and we get that. And so we're making some allowances, and we're working outside of our normal comfort zone or the normal box. Second one, no retardant. Well, we, as I've been talking about since day one, we were dropping retardant since day one. Now, we ask, if possible, let's try to keep them out of the rivers. Let's try not to kill the fish if we can. And so again, all the partners have been great in applying to it. Now, you may not have seen a whole lot of tanker activity lately because of these smoke inversions, and that nothing flies when you have a heavy blanket of smoke over it. But as this smoke is clearing, then we're able to get in the air and apply all those tools. And the third one is not enough direct attack. And I want to spend a bit of time on this one. So first of all, let's define direct attack from indirect attack. Okay, direct attack is when firefighters get in as close to the edge of that fire as possible. It's a very aggressive tactic to get in there close. One saying is black. You're very tight in there, and you're trying to come in real close and to keep that fire from growing. Wildland prefer direct attack as a general rule when you do it. It keeps the fire as small as possible, as quick as possible, and obviously the sooner you get that, the smaller your perimeter of the fire is that you have to worry about. So direct attack is the preferred method when it can be applied safely and effectively, right? When it can be applied safely and effectively. So in the terrain, when really steep country, really rough terrain, maybe a high number of standing snags, conditions that are either not effective, that you can put firefighters in there, expose them to great risk, and have very little chance of success. You just can't justify that level of risk. Now, wildland firefighters accept a great deal of risk. But like any other profession, like structural firefighters or soldiers even, you don't put them in every situation unless there's an acceptable risk and a good bit of success. So when you look at this fire area, a lot of this red, a lot of this country is definitely too steep, I think by everyone's agreement, to be able to go direct in large areas of the fire. However, there are areas of this fire where it is much more questionable that perhaps you can get in there. And so that is a matter of how much risk do you accept and how much benefit you think you'll get from that. Well, that's a judgment call, right? And if we were to go around this room right now and ask, how much risk do you think is acceptable on a scale of 1 to 10, you know, that firefighters should assume for risk for protection of unoccupied homes, right, which is a big deal to us, protecting our homes. I don't want my home to burn. That's worth a lot. But what level of risk is acceptable? I bet if we went around the room, we would get a difference in there. Some would say 7, some would say 3, maybe even 1 or 2. Well, even among firefighters, you have that difference of professional judgment in there. And a lot of it is based on the experiences that the firefighters have. And what is making things more complicated now is, as I've been learning, still fairly new to California, experiencing this, I've been talking to a lot of colleagues at CAL FIRE, colleagues from the park, colleagues from the incident management teams, learning more about the models here that have enhanced my training. And we are seeing such extreme conditions that a lot of the old tactics aren't working as effectively. And so all of that is being applied. So I can tell you that there is an increasing amount of direct attack, but there has been a great deal of indirect attack. So indirect attack, you put your fire lines in more defensible space where the models are a little bit more favorable, and then hopefully burn out some of those fuels between there and the main head of the fire. That has its own risks. And the risk to benefit, that is where it gets a little tricky, and professionals will have that healthy debate as to where to draw the line. And that is happening behind the scenes too. And we have a new team in here that has fresh eyes on it. And the one thing that I find that is very encouraging is that we have the fire professionals from the different agencies, Tulare County Fire Department, from CAL FIRE, from the incident management team, are meeting daily, assessing those strategies and trying to find that right balance between safety and risk and where we think the control lines would be effective. But that decision ultimately is not being driven by the park. I'm not in there saying this is where you're going to put a control line, this is where you go direct or indirect. Leaving that up to the Type 1 team professionals that we're bringing in, and they are getting feedback from our own fire organization, from the park that has some local expertise. They are getting feedback from Tulare County Fire Department. They're getting feedback from CAL FIRE. And then when those containment lines are on the park, then they are making that judgment then. And so I think it's a very healthy balance because of the professionalism that is behind it. But that is where you can get some legitimate, debate as to what that strategy should be. But I think that we're all benefiting as a community and the park resources by having that candid discussion among professionals to figure that out and to try to get that right. And let's see if I'm missing anything that I wanted to say on that. Yeah. So, and then the fourth reason, right, is indirect attack. And that is what, under the Southern Blue Team, a lot of the strategies have been putting in, those dozer lines, those containment lines back off because of what in their judgment was the extreme steepness of the terrain, very high densities of snag falls. And so a lot of the strategies have been indirect attack. Like I said, there's more and more direct attack occurring, all the time as the fire comes down in less thick, heavy stands. But when you're doing a lot of indirect attack, the matrix of containment is not a good measure of progress. So everything you've been seeing in these daily briefings with all this activity is a lot of good work, a lot of good collaborative work, all aimed at containing the fire, but it's not going to show on the board until there is black, against that fire line. So it is a different matrix. And those are the four things that we've been seeing on the blogosphere and all that. Well, actually, I guess there are others. I understand, I'm told that one of those possible rationales for the 8% is that I personally lit these fires using drones, apparently, And the reason I did it, ladies and gentlemen, was to solve my Mineral King problem. Now, I know I've only been here a little less than a year, but I was not aware that I have a Mineral King problem. But apparently, not only do I have a problem, but I even found a solution for it. So there are some things out there, and it is a word to advise. And I really appreciate County Supervisor Larry McCarry, who's back with us this evening, in his impassioned speech about let's try to knock down some of the crazy dialogue. There is room for debate. There is room to disagree on tactics and all that. But let's at least try to be a little bit, be informed in the process. And with that, I'm really excited. The Southwest team has an incredible reputation. They're taking over. They're a new set of eyes on this fire. And with that, I think we're going to move to an operational briefing. But I hope this was helpful in at least seeing behind the scenes what we're kind of wrestling with in those very difficult decisions where lives are at stake, protection of the community, protection of firefighters, and it's not an easy decision. It's very stressful, and I just want to express appreciation to our partners with all the agencies for trying to tackle those issues in such a professional manner. So thank you, and back to Carrie.
I'm not quite as tall as the superintendent. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate that insight and that candidness. And you're right. At this point, we're going to turn it over to Chad Rice, who is one of our operations section chiefs, and he's going to give you a little of that going around the map and talking what's being done or has been done. So I'll turn it over to Chad, and he's taller than I am too.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Chad Rice with your operational update. What happened today? So the biggest difference today is we had some more ventilation, and the smoke was able to vent out, and we're able to see something that blue team didn't have for the past week. So we were able to gather a lot more information in one day and intelligence than they were able to see in several days. So again, this is our first operational period, so we gathered a lot of intelligence. That blue team, in coordination with CAL FIRE and the county, was able to really put a lot of big box around this fire. And as our intelligence improves and we start gathering more, that big box is going to be able to keep shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. So a lot of work from CAL FIRE, the blue team, a lot of that coordination we can just build on. So I'll start down here on the southern end. So the Mineral King Road, fire is backing down that really steep face where that really thick brush is. It's moderate fire behavior, really low intensity, but in a really steep piece of ground. So it is coming out of that timber, and we're still, the priority is to keep fire north of that Mineral King Road. That Mineral King Road is not a good place to fight fire, but that's our only option in there. So we're going to make a pretty good stand. But it is, I can't express how that road is not favorable to firefighting, to holding fire on, but that's our only option for a ways to the south. So that's the objective there, keep fire north. The crews in there are prepping that. A lot of CAL FIRE support with staffing in there, along with the federal resources in there. Coming along in Division Alpha, there's a big, it was really favorable today. Not a whole lot of activity, a lot of good holding that comes off this big ridge line that dives down into Three Rivers. Not a whole lot of activity. They didn't fly any aviation in there to support them because they didn't request it. The crews were staffing that and holding everything, and everything stayed to the north of the holding lines. Going into Division Zulu, that fire hasn't moved much in there. Well, at least that we haven't seen. It's really held up in some of that steep, rocky country, but there was activity as the sun was able to get that heating on those brush fields up there. So while we took a flight today, we were able to see little 1 acre pockets on those really steep faces, 1 acre, 5 acre pockets really start to come alive. And that's to be expected when that ventilation happens and the sun is able to penetrate and reach the fire. There was a little bit of activity along this whole edge. It still stayed within our primary line right there. And when I say our primary line, that CAL FIRE division in there has primary, alternate, and contingency lines in there in those areas of high probability of success for the firefighters to keep fire east of those lines. So as we go north here at going into, and forgive me, I don't have all the names of the rivers and communities memorized yet, but there at our division break, X-Ray and Sierra, there's a river that comes through there. It starts with a K. I'm spacing the name. Cahuilla. The North Fork and the Cahuilla. So fire is out of the timber and it was backing through that brush and getting to some of that terrain that is more favorable. This is kind of a critical piece right here. We used a lot of aviation on that today. 4 helicopters dipping out of the river, and some mobile retardant was used on this line today. And that line is going to be critical over the next few days to keep it east and south of that river. When it crosses that kind of triggers some more engagement with CAL FIRE in the state and the Sequoia National Forest. Our highest priority tomorrow is going to be that piece right there. Coming around to Sierra, they're still doing a lot of that alternate and contingency plans in case fire does cross that river. That's going to be a tough piece of ground. That's a lot of acres, and there's not a good option because of the terrain to pick it up direct in there. It's not safe. And the fire behavior in that piece of ground, because it sees the sun a little bit more, with the snags in there, that's the safety concerns with that piece of ground. So that's why there's a lot of effort going up here where we can be successful. But again, stuff up here is not, it's not an easy catch for that fire going to the north. In Papa today, they had a lot of success from the general highway moving east. There was a lot of success today in Papa. The crews were able to go direct on that piece as close as they can. There was a big finger that they built the fire line and burned it out this afternoon, and they're still doing that now. And that is to build that fire line to keep fire south of that and limit progression to the north. Division Lima, pretty quiet in there. It was really shaded in that piece today because the wind coming out of the west was blowing smoke all on this eastern side of the fire, and we didn't have any visibility on this side as far as aviation goes. On the giant sequoias in here, we do have some of the local park fire employees have a plan in place. If the fire becomes more active inside the park, we have some trigger points to help protect that giant sequoia grove if needed. It's higher elevation, and given the weather that we're expecting this week, it's going to be improved conditions for firefighting. Down here, back into Division Charlie, most of this is unstaffed right now, just because the lack of values in there, and it's really inaccessible. So the focus, highest priorities is this Mineral King Road right here, monitoring fire coming off this steep country that you can see from Three Rivers, and then right here that North Fork Junction is our areas of concern going into tomorrow's shift. Any questions?
What's a snag?
A snag is a standing dead tree. Thank you.
And all of our presenters will be available, and at the end we will take questions, try to get in the room as well as some of the ones online, and get answers to questions you may have at the end. So thank you very much. I neglected to say that we do have a sign-up sheet in the back. If you would like to sign up to receive the daily updates, if you're not already on that list, you may sign in at the back and we can get you added to that. But that's the only purpose of that, is if you want to be added to the updates. With that, we're going to shift gears a little bit, and I am going to invite, I'm trying to get these names correct, Charlie Norman, and I do not want to crucify this. Is it Tulare County? Okay. The fire chief from the county, and he's going to teach me how to pronounce it.
It took 2 weeks to get the other team on this.
I can meet them if I do it.
Okay, everybody with me. Tulare County. Good job out there. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I'd also like to point out I have Division Chief Jeff McLaughlin, Captain Benitez in the back if you have questions. Very hardworking individuals. They've been here since day one. Thank you, guys. This is since September 9th when we had these lightning strikes. This has been a very, very unique situation in Tulare County. We currently have over 85,000 acres going on the Windy Fire that started on the reservation and starting causing some huge problems for us in the South County. So as with everything else in the state of California this summer, our resources are very thin. Our overall goal is structure protection. Within this, we work with the team. Chief McLaughlin and I've been in with Clay since day one. Obviously, September 9th, we had a lot of local fires that we were able to pick up pretty quickly. These two and the Windy Fire were not. Kind of our actions to begin with, we did do some structure prep in Cabin Cove and Silver City. We've since moved out of there. We need to get back into Mineral King when it's safe to do so. And we started structure protection defense in the Heartland area. And then working up there, we'll get that taken care of and prepped. And like I said, we have been in here with Mr. Ziegler and Clayton from the beginning of this. I want to thank all the local cooperators, everybody from the small cities in Tulare County to the big agencies, CAL FIRE, Forest Service, have all been with us in the same fight. So misinformation, just to talk about that, make sure you're getting your information from a credible source. Website, fire department website, incident website, Tulare County SO website, Tulare County Fire website, to just ensure that you're getting adequate information. Did you need me to cover the 4 bullet point format for the rest of it? Okay, I think you covered everything very well. Thank you, Clay. I'll be in the back to answer any questions. Again, resources in California are at an all-time premium. We are doing, the Tulare County Fire Department has approximately 134 personnel. We have over half of our resources on these 2 incidents, so we're very well engaged. Thank you.
Okay, and then, so next is Joe Armstrong, and he's the sergeant with Tulare County Sheriff's Department.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sergeant Joe Armstrong with the Tulare County Sheriff's Office. I've been assigned to this detail since the 12th, since Sunday the 12th, involved with all the evacuations, involved with all the planning with. I've been working side by side with Tulare County Fire, working with CAL FIRE and all the other cooperators, Park Service, going forward. Just a little recap, we have everything evacuated from the park entrance down to Mineral King, from 198 on Mineral King to the end, including Mineral King, Silver City, Cabin Cove, and the Hammond area. Once those areas are safe to repopulate, that's my plan. I've been talking with teams, trying to get them to come up with a time frame when I could do so. That's kind of where we're at. As far as Isham and Heartland area, they're under a evac warning. They're free to go in and out, but everybody up there is aware. I sent a team up to knock on everybody's door and make sure that they're aware of the evacuations. So that's what I have as of right now.
Okay, and then I'm going to invite Dave Bales, who's the incident commander of Southwest Area Incident Management Team 2 up, introduce himself, talk a little bit about why we're here, why we were ordered, and close out, and then we'll start into questions.
Thanks, Carrie, and I'll try not to trip over this cord. Everybody else has been successful not to do that. But again, I'm Dave Bales. I'm the incident commander for Southwest Team 2. And like Carrie said, we've been brought into, the southern area team's been here for a couple weeks. We know the local community's been battling these fires for, since the 9th and 10th. And, it's hard to put out these fires. And Clay, I really appreciate you going through that. It was great to hear you talk about a lot of that stuff, because it is difficult to fight fire in a lot of the country we travel throughout the country, is the steep terrain, and we're always looking for areas for that highest possibility for success for our firefighters, right? It's letting it come down to that line that Clay, you were talking about, that it's safe for our firefighters, and it's a safe place for us to hold that black on. So, our team comes from the Southwest, but we have folks from really all over the country that's a part of our team, as well as the southern area did. So we've spent the last 2 days really working with the Southern Area Blue Team on everything that their successes, their challenges, and working with them to transition. And last night at 1800, we officially took over the fire. So we've had command and control of the fire for 24 hours at this point. And, and Chad and Scott, they've been out and working with the community, the folks that have been here the whole time, and really trying to work together to continue this plan and get this fire out as soon as possible. And that's really the goal for all of us, right? The smoke's been an issue, being able to fly aviation, all that's been a challenge. And it's been a challenge nationally. If you guys have been watching the news, our team has been on fire since April, starting in the Southwest. We've had 6 assignments as we've traveled across the country, and we're happy to be here now and working with you folks and trying to wrap this up as soon as possible. But it's a long game, right? It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and we got to take our chances while we can. We were able to fly some aviation today, had some successes. We really appreciate all the information and download that we've had the last couple days. That's crucial for us as we move teams in and out, is sharing that information and again, that successes and challenges that we can. So again, there's been a lot of information here tonight. I don't want to go over a lot more of that, but we have a excited team to be here, and we're here for a good 2 weeks or so. So we think with the clear air and the assets that we have in place, you heard the chief talk about these 2 fires, Windy and the KNP Complex, really have the bulk of the resources here in Southern California. So we're capitalizing on that to attack the fire in the best places that we can. So I think we're in a good place, and we really again appreciate all the efforts, from Sequoia Kings Canyon National Park, Sequoia National Forest, CAL FIRE, Tulare County, the Sheriff's Department. It's critical that we're all one team at this point, right? And we've started off on a good foot, and I hope we can move forward here and continue these relationships here over the next couple weeks to build on that success so that we can get this far out for you and the communities that are at risk here. So I don't have a lot more. We'll get to questions. So again, the Southwest Team 2 is excited to be here. Reach out to our public information group. We'll have a lot of people. You'll see gray shirts in the community, gray hats. Reach out, let us know how we're doing, what we're doing, and what we can do better. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, one more quick announcement before we start. I will ask you to raise your hands, and then we have somebody with a mic, and they'll come over and let you ask the question. I will try to repeat it, and then we'll find somebody to answer it for you. But as you probably all know, there is an INSA page, a Facebook page, a Twitter page, an email, and a phone number. None of those have changed. Everything that was at the old team, all the numbers, all the websites, everything rolled over. So from your perspective, if you've been looking at those pages or making those phone calls, they all still work. So continue to use them. I do have a sheet up here that if we need to get that stuff shared with you, I have it. I didn't want to automatically assume you didn't already know it. So with that, I'm sure there are questions. If you'd raise your hand, we'll start seeing what we can do to. Excuse me, sir?
Do we have CAL FIRE? They normally give a person.
CAL FIRE is present. So if there are questions, yeah, if there are questions, okay.
I appreciate that, sir. My name is Andy Turner. I'm the CAL FIRE agency rep, representing the department, representing your end holdings, your private lands, your livelihood, for your private properties. And as an agency, we've been advocating for you to get some more of that direct line that the superintendent was talking about. We've been advocating that priorities be made in the northwest and southwest corners of the fire, and we've been allocating a bunch of resources towards this. So as you get closer to a map and you see a spider web of dozer line out there, that's us, and our guys have dozers pushing 24/7, and we are putting line anywhere we can. So if the fire comes out of the park, we'll be right on top of it. It was suggested earlier that maybe we should leave our bias and emotion out of it when we're advocating for the firefight, and I want to say that that's not going to happen. I am extremely biased and emotional about these places where I've raised my kids, up in Silver City and brought them up to the mountains, and I don't want to see that stuff go away. So I'm going to continue to be an advocate for you, and together, it's going to go out. We're going to get it, and we're not going to go anywhere. So that's all. That's the end of my report.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Come right on up.
So earlier, Larry McCarry and district supervisors here. I also want to point out Shelley Abidjan is here from Senator Feinstein's office, and she has been very much, we communicate all the time since the beginning. There's been a lot of support, always asking what kind of support do you need, and so appreciate you being here this evening, Shelley.
Thank you for sharing that. As coming in from the Southwest, I don't know all of the local players, so thank you for helping us with that. At this point, if there are questions that you would like to ask any of the people that are in the room and have been here, we have a gentleman raise your hands, and she will start coming around. We'll ask questions and answer them. If you don't want to hold your hand up the entire time, feel free to put it down, but as soon as we're done with that one, make sure it comes back up so we don't miss anybody.
I'm just going to do, yep, the mic is working.
Yep, good.
All right. Could you describe some of the alternate contingency lines near Three Rivers, and what would crossing Mineral Queen Road trigger?
So I believe that's an ops question. The question, and I'm going to try to repeat it so everybody can hear it. If I don't get it right, please correct me. It was, your concern is about the alternate and contingency lines around Three Rivers, and you wanted to know what it would mean if the fire crossed Mineral Creek King Road. Did I get it correctly? Okay. Chad, I'll let you address it.
So to answer the question about the alternate lines around Three Rivers, we'll have to get pretty precise on there, but there's multiple levels. We operate in the PACE model, primary, alternate, contingency, emergency. I would say in our PACE model, we have probably 4 to 6 layers of alternate before we go to contingency and emergency. So there's different road layers that have been reopened, primary dozer line, tied in with road systems, and when he referred to a spider web of dozer lines, imagine a plate of spaghetti going on the ground, and that's what some of them could look like in some areas. And to get real specific, I mean, we're gonna have to get on the map, but just know that tying in road systems with dozer line, mastication line, the masticator, what it'll do is piece of heavy equipment with a boom, with a drum that'll spin with teeth and really tear up some brush and tear up the ladder fuels to minimize fire behavior along a road system or a dozer line. So when we're talking about dozer line and prep and these road systems on these alternate contingency lines, that's what those look like. So I don't think you would get anything out of it if I talked to each one, but maybe afterwards you grab me or someone from CAL FIRE and we could get specific on those, but they are showing on the maps. If fire crosses south of Mineral King Road, and this goes with any of our alternate lines or our primary lines. If fire gets south, there's 100 different conditions what that fire could look like when it's coming across. You know, if it heats back up and the brush wants to burn, specifically in Mineral King, when that brush wants to burn, it wants to burn and it'll go for a while. So it all depends on the conditions. If it's one rock that rolls across and fire does get established underneath it, if it's overcast, the crews, you know, depending on the time of day, the crews could jump on it. If they have support from aviation, they could jump on it. If it's overcast and the fire behavior is mellow, they can gain access to it. If it's sunny and the brush wants to burn, it could be one little ember that gets across, and it could be several acres in a matter of minutes, and it could really be chasing some people, and that's where we'd have to back off and find some of those alternate contingency lines to corral it. So know that there is alternate and contingency being made south of Mineral, but it's the distance is quite a bit bigger than it is around Three Rivers because how steep those canyons are, how large those canyons are, and the bottoms of canyons is not where we have historically a high likelihood of success, but on ridge tops we do, and that's the problem with that Mineral King. It's all mid-slope. You don't get to ridge tops until you gain a couple thousand feet of elevation gain. So that's the challenge moving south. Hopefully that answered that question for you.
I have two questions regarding information.
Okay.
First one, is it possible to get these maps with the markups placed on InsaWeb?
When you say mark, let me repeat the question and then clarify your question. So the question was to us, and you want to know if we get the maps that are being produced with the markups, you would like those posted to InsaWeb. My question to you and I is, what is your definition of a markup? What are we missing so we can...
Stated where you have the containment lines, that sort of stuff, would like to see on InsaWeb. On InsaWeb, we just have the red outline and the pink fire. That's it.
Okay, I think I understand the question, and let me see if I have it right. And if I don't, we're going to work on fixing it. So bear with me. When you look at the main InsaWeb page, when you open it up and you see KNP Complex, you see a big map, and you're right, all it shows is this. There's a bar right below it, and it says, and I'll get the order wrong, it says home, announcements, information. There's a maps. In the maps, if you look at the maps folder, these more detailed maps should be there. It is they're not. Okay, it is day one for us. I agree that that needs to be there. And I will tell you two things. This is not an excuse. I'm asking for a little bit of patience in that InsaWeb has been having some crashing challenges, which is part of the reason some of the maps are showing up on the Sequoia Facebook page and not on InsaWeb, only because if we can't post them that minute or today to InsaWeb, we're making sure they're on Facebook. That is not our intent, that's not our goal, and as soon as we can get this system fixed, we will get them posted. They are going to be available. We will work very hard to make sure that happens. That was your first question. What is your second question?
Perfect segue into the second question. Some of us don't do Facebook.
Fair enough.
Or other social media.
Understand.
Can we get that on InsaWeb?
And that is, as I said, that is the goal. The other thing I know the park is working on, and I will see if fingers crossed, because again, we've been talking and recognize that Facebook is not the best platform. Not everybody has it. We are trying to find a fallback system to InsaWeb where things can be posted that'll be readily available for you if InsaWeb doesn't come back up and become stable. So just know that, yes, we've trained you for years to use InsaWeb, and we appreciate it because it's a one-stop shop. But for whatever reason that I'm not a techie specialist, it's not working right now, and we're working to find a better alternative for you. Okay?
Put that information on InsaWeb so we can go to the new place?
We will put an announcement on there if we do that. If we have to go there, yes, we will put an announcement on Facebook. For those of you that may not have heard him ask the question, the gentleman asked if we were not able to get those maps on Facebook, or not on Facebook, on InsaWeb, if we would post an announcement about where the maps were being posted, that people could look for them outside of Facebook. And on InsaWeb, post an announcement on InsaWeb where you can find those maps if we can't get them posted to InsaWeb. Yes, sir. All right.
Carrie, I think I have one more follow-up information question for you.
Okay, and then we'll come this way.
Hi, could we also get the weekly or daily fire progression map, the one that's on the far wall there, to the left? Get that posted also? Because that one shows how the fire is growing day by day, and that was really good for our fire that affected us last year.
Okay.
For us to keep an idea of how quickly the fire was moving.
So, okay, so the question that the gentleman asked had to do with what we call a progression map, which shows how much growth the fire did each day, and you would like that on InsaWeb as well? Okay, I will write myself notes about both of those, and we will see what we can do about getting maps on InsaWeb, and again, if I can't, we will find a backup solution or an alternative solution, and we'll let you know what that is so you can see these maps. Because yes, we agree with you. They're valuable resources, and you need to have them. Okay, this lady up front has been very patient, so can we ask hers, and then we'll come to the other ones.
Do we have access to and are we utilizing night vision helicopters?
She asked the question of, do we have access to and are we utilizing night vision helicopters and infrared? And I'm looking kind of at Chad because air operations would be under you, and I don't know how else to answer that question.
Short answer is yes, but very limited. Federal resources are very limited with the night operations for those for that resource. The state of California does have that, and correct me if I'm wrong. You guys have been using it at night. Looking at a CAL FIRE resource, have you guys been using any night aviation? Negative. Negative. Okay, so no, I heard some traffic on it the other night before we had the fire, but so the answer is no, we have not been using it.
Hey Carrie, while we're on the subject of fire, aircraft, we've been getting some questions through the Facebook Live Q&A, and I wonder if maybe we might just talk a little bit about how we make the decision to fly and where you go and what kind of determines the resources you have available.
Okay, so I'm going to try and repeat that. That was a comment that came in on our Facebook Live feed, and the question had to do with how we use air resources, how we make the determination of when we use them and where we use them. Does that pretty much capture the question?
That sounds great, Carrie.
Okay, Chad again.
So this is going to be a very, that's a complex question. We have an air operations that helps decide a lot of that, but the first one's going to be visibility. You guys saw the layer of smoke in here. There's some aviation resources that can fly. We have drones, unmanned drone capabilities that can see through some of that thick smoke with some infrared technology. We have that, and they have been using that the past few shifts. We're using that daily. As far as the larger aviation, we have an air attack platform that flies daily, monitoring the smoke. And as they assess the smoke, they are able to communicate with the resources on the ground and select the right tool for the job, just like a mechanic would working on an engine. We have a lot of tools at our disposal, aviation-wise. The difference between a tanked helicopter or a bucket helicopter are used for different things. So depending on what the request is on the ground, if that aviation resource is available on that fire, we'll make that decision. As far as fixed wing versus rotor wing, a lot of that is smoke, obviously, and you got to have a larger visibility based on the airspeed and then the terrain. And that's the challenging one with this fire. With fixed wing retardant is the terrain. The aviation does not like steep slopes. So you combine that with smoke. So those are some of the challenges, but those are the factors that influence what piece of aviation tools that we use in an operational period.
Okay. Okay, there's one in the back. Okay, and then we'll work our way back forward. Yes, sir.
Yes, I just wanted to volunteer. The Three Rivers Fire Safe Council has a web page. We have a story map in development that the consultants have put the S3 map and the InstaWeb map together on it. But if you can get us those maps and any information, we can post it on the Three Rivers Fire Safe Council page and update it daily. So we've got the resources, you just need to give it to us. Thank you.
Okay. That was more of a comment than a question, but I thank you very much for it. What I would ask of you, sir, he said that he has got a Fire Safe Council website that he can put that into his story map stuff if we can get him those maps. It looks like one of my information officers is ahead of me. I was going to see if we could tie in with that and make sure we make that connection. So, okay, next question.
Yeah, hi, this is a specific question. Below the Indian Head parking lot, it looks like the fire has crossed the river there. Now, you guys didn't start that, right? That's the fire. And it's progressing west of Ash Mountain. I'm just wondering how far you're going to let it go before people that have property up there can get up there and take responsibility for themselves and maybe fight it on their own with their, if they have a large water tank and things like that. Because like he said, the other guy, a lot of things can happen. And it can get a lot of control and it can spread even though you want to stop it. So my question to you is, what's going on there?
Okay, so your question specifically had to do with below the entrance sign.
That's the problem. You don't know the area. You don't even know what I'm talking about.
That you're absolutely right, sir. Being here on day 2, I'm catching up. I'm doing a lot of catch up, but that doesn't mean that we don't have people here that probably have a much better understanding of this area than I do. I want to make sure I understand your question so we can get you the right person to answer it.
Is it spreading up Ash Mountain?
The general question is
because the thing is, it crossed the river there, right under the Indian Head, and across the river, it's on its own. You guys can do that.
So you're saying it's crossed the river and it's moving up Ash. Okay, I'm not challenging you in any way.
I'm just talking.
Fair enough.
I care less about anybody. I'm just wondering what's happening with the fire there.
Fire at the Ash Mountain piece.
I might be able to help a little bit.
Okay, please.
Our guys have been working that front end. So, are you talking about on the north side of the Middle Fork, or are you talking about the south side of the Middle Fork? Milk Ranch Peak?
No, I'm talking about the Indian Head sign, parallel to the Indian Head sign, just down the path where the river is. According to the map, it's across the river right there.
I would have to probably have you point at the map exactly where you're talking about.
It's right here.
Going up from Milk Ranch, or from Ash Mountain to the right, or to the south, from where I'm facing, the crews have come down that ridge line and they burned that in, and they've held it for the last 3 days now, and it's a pretty solid line. The hot shots from the Forest Service.
So the map's wrong?
Well, I would have to have you point exactly at a map, and we can do so afterwards if you'd like, and we can talk it over, because I just don't know exactly where you're talking about. But we can meet afterwards, and I'll tell you exactly what's going on.
Yeah, afterwards, we can come back to that because I think we have some other folks in the room that know exactly
Okay.
goes on in that spot. That would
So,
help with.
perfect, and thank you all for that offer, because you're right. Some of us have been here just a couple days. We're trying to figure it out. But we do have the expertise in the room, people that have been here much longer, know these areas, know the ground, and can help answer some of your questions. Okay. We've got 2 or 3 more coming around, so we'll just keep working our way around.
I have 2 questions. One
Okay.
is, just from my view, and it seems like the fire is not coming toward Three Rivers very quickly. Seems like it's almost has been that since the last several meetings, a week or so. Am I misunderstanding what I'm seeing?
Except for Edge Mountain.
So you're talking about this southwest corner.
Yes.
And I believe Chad said, and make sure I'm not misstating what Chad said, you're asking, that doesn't look like it's moving very much. The term I believe Chad used was backing down slowly.
But I mean, in the last 2 weeks, it doesn't look like.
And that's a good thing. So
I think it is.
it is, that's the, you'll see it. We're not saying that there isn't fire up there, but if it is coming down the hill against the wind and it's moving slowly, that gives us firefighters a chance to find that line where they can hold it, and they don't have to try to get up that hill and put them into a place that Dave talked about. That is one of those benefit versus reward, kind of, we put firefighters in risk that is way too unprobability of success, where we can allow it to come down to a place where we can fight it and be much more successful and safe. And I want to make sure before I go to your second question that I didn't misspeak or I didn't miss anything.
Correct.
Okay.
Without getting specific on the original.
It just doesn't seem like it's coming down this fast.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And my
Second question.
is a follow-up on the night vision helicopter. You says it's a limited resources. Have we asked for it, or do we need it, or it's just too limited that we could never get one?
2,000 gallons at a time.
You understand that question? You said that the night vision helicopters are they're high demand. Have we requested them? And
Do we need them?
would they be good if we did request them?
Okay, so the question, and I'm trying to repeat it to make sure that everybody hears it. So your question had to do with the night vision helicopters. Someone else said 2,000 gallons. Have we requested them? Do we need them? Did I capture it correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So night vision. Aviation works directly with boots on the ground. Some of that country, to shorten the answer is no and no. Limited resource. A lot of people are unfamiliar with it, and then how effective it'll be in some of this country. I don't know. I haven't worked. Very limited experience with that resource. Very limited resource. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Have we asked for more resources? I realize we're in competition with other fires for resources, but have we requested more resources? And if so, what do we think our probabilities of getting more resources are?
And I'm going to make an educated guess. You're asking the question of, do we need more resources? Have we asked for more resources? And what's our probability of getting more resources? And I am guessing you're talking about boots on the ground.
Any resources you need.
Okay. All right. That's a multifaceted question, but I'll let Chad answer it for ops, and then if we have other questions about other resources, we can address it.
Yes, we do have a need for more resources. We've made the request. We have outstanding orders, what it's called, and then we get what is UTF, unable to fill, with different types of resources. That's overhead, crews, heavy, mid-level leadership, all across the board. The coordination with CAL FIRE and the state and the county, they help supplement that a lot. It does come with some challenges on who pays for what sometimes, which is that's the reality. But yes, we do have orders out for resources Given the time of year, some of those resources are very limited, towards the end of the fire season. So short answer is yes, we have ordered a lot of resources, and some of them, do we anticipate getting them? I would say yes, we are competing with a couple other fires just within the state. So, thank you.
Okay. I'm going to ask that I guess we have a couple of online questions, so we're going to let those questions be answered as well, and then we'll go back and see if there's any other questions in the room, and if we run out of time, we'll still be here and we can talk to MAPS, and people will be available to answer some very specific questions and concerns. But yes, go ahead.
Sorry, there are some specific questions regarding evacuations, and I wonder if we could just talk a little bit to how we analyze those types of situations and make determinations as to which areas are under evacuation warnings and so on.
Okay, so the question that came in online has to do with evacuations and how those evacuations are determined, what goes into making those decisions. And it looks like the sheriff is going to come up and help me with this one. And I appreciate that very much.
And where's the sheriff from?
Tulare County.
Okay, so hopefully I understand the question correctly. When determining the lines for the evacuation, we look at response time and how long it'll take me to get personnel up into that area from the initial call out to actually them knocking on doors. So that's how I'm measuring the time frame for those lines there. And then as far as the repopulation, I'm going off of what the team is telling me, what the firefighters are telling me, and everything else. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you so much. Okay, next question from online.
Hi, I'm Sheila Stone from the Three Rivers Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
So I have multiple questions from multiple people, so just bear with me and I'll try to keep them all in group.
Okay.
So I am a business owner and also a former firefighter at Ash Mountain. So I'm very familiar with terminology, but some of our people that are viewing right now may not be familiar with that terminology. So Mr. Rice, can you explain to our people that are viewing what exactly does it mean, division?
That's okay.
It's a good question, and there's probably a lot of terms that I use that is not commonplace. So a division is a spatial term that we use on the fire line that will separate kind of the chain of command. We'll have a division group supervisor who is in charge from this road system to this road system on how the crews are tactically used and helps develop the plan. And so we'll have in our incident command structure, operations, branch, and division level. So the division is spatially identified on the map.
Can you clarify for people watching, does the division mean that only CAL FIRE is on one division or services on another? Or are they intermingled?
They can be separated. On this one, they're intermingled.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question that I've been asked by someone is, this one's a little more specific, and it's probably for you, Mr. Rice. This one is, I'm going to have to read it. Do you have a tentative timeline that you can share when you plan to backfire Shepherd's Saddle where it meets North Fork, or anywhere along Shepherd's and North Fork? And if you have a trigger point for mandatory evacuations for that area at this time?
And can you
Sorry, that's a big question.
Can you attempt to summarize that question?
The question is our timeline and trigger points to initiate a firing operation near Shepherd's Saddle.
And North Fork area.
And North Fork area.
Sorry, that's a tough one. Where Shepherd's Saddle meets North Fork.
We do not want, that's part of our alternate lines. We do not want to fire that off. So we go back to primary, alternate, and contingency. So our trigger point So our trigger point to that piece of ground is if fire starts progressing to the west off of that terrain feature up there. The trigger point is if, based on the weather and the fire behavior, if we know it's going to impact that, then we'll initiate a firing operation. But we have to be a few shifts ahead of that, because that firing operation that includes that specific piece of line includes it's going to add a bunch of acres, a bunch of land in there. So the specific trigger point, I don't have a date and time for you when that is, but it's going to be based on fire behavior, the expected weather, and the progression of that fire. So it's going to be very vague right there.
I understand. I'm just repeating the question. Another question was for Mineral King. So we've been told that the crews have been backed out of Mineral King for safety's sake, which is very important. Do we have crews at the Oak Grove Bridge right now on standby, or are they fully off of off of the Mineral King Road?
No, so in coordination with CAL FIRE, there's some heavy equipment and additional heavy equipment moving into that Silver City and Mineral King area to help prep some of that infrastructure in there.
So you're farther past Oak Grove Bridge, is what you're saying?
Yes.
You are.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Oak Grove Bridge.
Oak Grove is 7 miles up?
Okay, yeah, I do know that.
You're at Mill Branch, I've been told.
Yeah, so we're staffing all of Mineral King Road right now.
Okay. And then I had one more question, and I just lost it. Division, first question, Oak Grove, Norfolk. There's something else, but if it's important, I'm sure they'll text me and let me know. Sorry, I do remember what it was. Superintendent Jordan, for businesses here in town, business owners, Park Service is closed. The park is closed, which means we're out of business. Previous experience in fire, and as a business owner, my guess is that we're looking at least another month before this park opens. Would you say that's a fair assumption?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So the question is, or the request is for me to look in the crystal ball and try to speculate how long the park will be closed for, Sequoia National Park specifically. It is really an excellent question, and I've been asking myself that question every day, quite a bit, especially as I start to look beyond this fire. And I will tell you some of the concerns I have that is going to complicate opening the park. We, as soon as it's safe to do so, we will bring in a team of folks to do a full assessment on what it takes to rehabilitate, to stabilize and rehabilitate those areas of the park that people visit. So, of course, the greatest interest is the General's Highways up to Giant Forest. And I can tell you that the fire burned with great intensity on some of those slopes on the General's Highway. That could be a real concern for potential landslides. And so as soon as we're able to, we're going to get geologists in there. They will do an assessment and help us figure that out. The other thing that we're facing, especially as you get to the higher elevations close to Giant Forest, there are a gazillion hazard trees along the road there. The fire burned very intensely in some locations. These are the high intensity fire that I'm saying that we're always trying to prevent, burned real hot. So between that road issue and hazard trees, that's going to make a major influence as to how quickly we can get that open. I will tell you that I do not like closures. You know, it is just against my grain. My staff will tell you that. My interest is getting this park open piece by piece as quickly as possible. And it may be that the route to Giant Forest, it may be coming in from Grant Grove that we're able to open sooner than we're able to restore that General's Highway coming up from Ash Mountain. So I don't know, except that our staff is already working on what the different funding sources can be and where we can really work on it as quickly as possible. But I think it may be a big task. And of course, keep in mind, this fire hasn't ended telling its story yet. You know, we don't know what's going to happen before we have it contained and controlled, and that could affect power lines. You know, there's a power line that could be vulnerable that feeds power to the entire Giant Forest, Waxahachie, Red Fir, Lodgepole, that whole area. We have utility systems, restrooms. We lost part of a septic system up there. So we've been doing pretty well compared to what we were afraid we'd be facing just a couple of weeks ago. But make no mistake, it is going to be a real challenge to get this park back open quickly, and I would expect it'll be in sections, would be my gut feeling.
So gut feeling is we're going in through 180 and not 198 for a little bit, possibly.
That, again, is a crystal ball. I will confess it is a somewhat cloudy crystal ball, but I suspect that the terrain is less severe. We have certainly less high-intensity burn slopes on that route right now, and hopefully we can keep it that way to give an access through there. But I will have to wait and see, but I need to be realistic that we may have some significant challenges ahead to get that. I will tell you that there's going to be a lot of support coming from different sources to give us the funding support that we need in order to do that rehabilitation, but it's going to take time.
Do you think you'll have AD work for those of us who are unemployed?
Could be, you know, very well, but thanks for the question.
Sergeant Armstrong, we made a message to all of the people who have vacant homes in town. Did anyone respond to you with their addresses and their locations of vacant homes? So you're not wasting your time?
Yes, I did have a few reach out to one.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to check on that and follow up. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we've held you now almost an hour and a half. I thank you for your time. I think we will close the formal questions at this point. But again, we're still here. The maps are still on the wall. We will try to have, in fact, what I think I'll do is I will ask Chad to stand right where he is. I'm going to ask Cal Fire if you'll go over to the map in that corner. And the only reason I'm doing this is so that you guys, if you have a question, he promised you would ask, you know where he's going to be standing, so you can directly ask him. Incident Commander Dave Bales and Park Superintendent Clay Jordan will be up here by this map. So if that works for everybody, I probably missed a couple people that might need to be helping answer questions, but we'll field that as we go. So with that, thank you all for your attention. Thank you all for your coming to spend your evening with us, and we'll be here to answer a few more questions. Thank you.